Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of Outcomes. I'm your host, Barrett King. With me today is Brian. He's a guru, a master. We were joking about this before. We're going to give him a cool title. He's over at Google, helping their marketplace grow and doing some really awesome work. I think we're going to have a really different conversation. Although I think I've said that a lot lately. I'm trying to bring on guests that have a different perspective. Brian's got a really cool background, AWS, Google. He's done some cool big brand stuff, but also has a really well-rounded and grounded idea of how partnerships can do more than just help B2B SaaS companies grow. So first off, my friend, welcome to the show.
Appreciate the time. Pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure. This is going to be fun. We were chatting as we do before I hit record. I think the listeners know that I do that. And one of the core things that came out of it was, how you and I both think about partnerships very similarly and sort of how we've translated that to more than just the roles that we've had. So let me ask you first and foremost, what does partnerships mean to you?
So it's interesting because as during COVID, you spent a lot of time at home working with your wife, and my wife kept hearing the AWS acronyms, EDP and SRP and ISVA. And she was like, what do you do? And so I tried to build an analogy for both my parents and for my wife of the industry of partnerships. And I thought more about it as a garden. You have the diversity, you have the different types of equipment that you use to nurture the plants, but it's also all the different types of agriculture that you have in your garden. Some are fruits, some are vegetables, some are plants, some are, trees. They all play a different role and function, similar to partnerships, right? Your ISV partnerships are different than your SI or GSI. Your hyperscaler partnerships are very different, but they all serve a different role. And at the end of the day, for your garden to survive, you need to nurture it. You need to invest in it. You need to make sure that you're leaning into it. Otherwise, everything is going to flounder. And so that has always been my analogy for the game of partnerships, is making sure that you have a diverse partnership. You're providing the right resources. You're providing the right love and care and attention to it. And you're not spreading yourself too thin. Otherwise, everything's going to fail.
I love it. All right. So the SaaS company in this example is the dirt that all of the plants and fruits and such grow in. We're going to go with that. Does that make sense?
We can go with that.
We'll just roll with that. I like that. Let's just roll with it. So it's a great answer. It's actually unique and it's interesting. I'm an analogies guy. So I like that as a good way to articulate how you've thought about partnerships in the past. Translating to how we're going to talk about today, what partnerships as a skill set and the experience you've had and exposure can do for other industries outside the core, again, B2B SaaS framework, which is a lot of what this show is about. The show is meant to be partnerships in SaaS in particular. But I think what's coming up more and more, and I'm seeing it in my conversations, is that leaders like you and I and folks that have done this work recognize that partnerships is about people and relationships and
Absolutely.
the 1 + 1 = 3 and all the things that we talk about in our role and in our vertical. So let's talk at a high level first. What's been your sort of cultivating moment? What's been that catalyst to start to think about how partnerships can help you add value in other industries? How have you thought about that in terms of breaking out of the framework of just B2B SaaS?
One interesting, because I think as a function, most partnership leaders have worn multiple hats, right? Some come from marketing, some from CS, some from sales, some from product. And so understanding those elements and how those puzzle pieces work together, I think has allowed our kind of field to blossom in different ways. And as I had experience at AWS and seeing the deal velocity that you were able to grow a deal from, 1 year commit to 3 year commit using the AWS partnership, using maybe a GSI partnership. And really what that catapulted is when I was on AWS Marketplace and you saw this, when I first started on the advertising and marketing category, there was 0 partners, there was zero revenue, and getting partners to get bought into it, like Adobe, getting partners to buy into it, like Telium and Treasure Data and so on and so forth, a lot of MarTech providers. You started to see the wheels start to turn of there's actual incentives for our customers to contract through Marketplace. There's actually resources. There's actually investment that AWS is making in our ability to close deals faster and close larger deals. And so we started to see that where, we were doing hundreds of deals per month. We were doing, millions of dollars through the marketplace per month. And I started to see how hyperscalers can actually unlock a tremendous value for SaaS partnerships by just using the nature of cloud marketplaces.
It's interesting. And then, so in that experience, as you started to break out of the core framework and certainly look at, to your point, how the marketplace itself can evolve, how does that translate into other opportunities, right? So I think it's easy to make the assumption that partnerships is about just driving revenue, but what are some of the other connectors, right? Because what I'm trying to frame into is like, if I'm the listener, I'm having, the experience of our conversation right now. What I want them to understand is that, partnerships is not just revenue. Partnerships is so much more than that, which 100%. I talked about before. I want your perspective on that. So how have you thought about, in particular, taking the core partnerships framework of B2B SaaS, revenue driving, and expand that into marketplace, expand that into other opportunities outside that core framework?
So I think what the hyperscalers do very well as it pertains to partnerships is they look at partnering as a very holistic view of build. How do we do more integrations together? How do we deepen our technical expertise, getting product and engineering bought into the partnership? How do we market? How do we drive more awareness through, webinars, case studies, customer references, executive roundtables, roadshows? The list goes on. How do you drive pipeline together? Which then ultimately feeds into sell. And if you're not doing the build and market elements of it, you're actually going to fail to sell because you don't have that better together story. You don't have that competitive differentiation. You don't have like what that joint value prop is for why you guys should go to market together in and of itself. And so I think I've always looked at it as that lens as with any partnership. It could be with a hyperscaler, it could be with another SaaS provider, it could be with a consulting partner or reseller. Like, what is that better together story, and how are we going to build, market, and sell together in a more holistic and more efficient manner?
Yeah, but I think it's important to highlight specifically build, market, and sell. We get right. Everyone wants to talk about that.
For sure.
Literally, almost every revenue leader I talk to that asks me the question of how do I build a partner program, the first thing out of their mouth after I say, why do you want to build it, is I want more money, I want more revenue, right?
Tell me the ROI of the partner thing.
Yeah. How fast can they sell shit for us? But the build and the market component is true alignment across the entire partner experience, customer experience, et cetera. How do you go about then identifying the build opportunities? The market piece, I start to understand. I've talked about it with other marketing leaders in partnerships. When you think about, just to kind of synthesize it really quickly, the idea that, we can talk about the solution together. We can go to market together around how the solution helps the customer. How do you build? How do you go even further upstream, if you will, and really seed those opportunities? What are some of the learnings you brought from that?
So I'm gonna throw another analogy at you since
I love analogies.
You appreciate them.
Do it. Yeah.
So playing basketball throughout my life, you as a point guard, you are an orchestrator, right? You're trying to figure out how different how your shooting guard and your small forward and your center balance each other. How do they benefit each other? Where are their weaknesses and their strengths so that you can help collaborate in a more effective way? But you're also understanding what is your competitor's weaknesses. How do you exploit that? And so I think that is a function of a partner team, right? You're trying to understand, does marketing have the budget? Does product have a gap in their product roadmap that one of my partners might be able to slot into? Does my engineering team have the right skill set to be able to, should we get certifications that can help enable them or augment their existing weaknesses? And so I view that just from a partner lens of all right, so on that build layer, as you were referring to, I always try to see what are my competitors doing? What is the industry doing? You're seeing the deprecation of third-party cookies. How do I start to partner with different players in the space to help offset that gap in our existing value prop? How do I also partner with different players so that we can solve that customer need and customer want at a faster clip? And so that is kind of, I've always viewed that from a partner standpoint is understanding the way in which things are moving and understand what your competitors might be doing and where you can create that competitive wedge by leaning into partner integrations and partner co-development or co-innovation.